Hey guys, I hope it's working okay. Um, well, my room's a little messy. I didn't realize that. Jeez. I'm a hot ass mess lately. Problematic body check. Oh wait, I gotta do it this way. Problematic body check. To me it looks kind of the same. It's weird how it looks different from both sides. But I did just eat. I ate like a big meal. So I don't know, I guess problematic body check is not necessarily on point right now. It's been a minute. Um, so this is gonna be interesting. Um, I haven't streamed in a while. Hello, Sadie. How are you? I thought I would try earlier because I've posted so late most of the time, but I'm kind of like, I don't know, my schedule was a little weird today, so I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and go live earlier because why not, essentially. And I think I just haven't had a lot to say on here. But lately, I feel like I need to talk about stuff a little bit, especially prior to a health update, because I don't even really know what's happening with me. But yeah, it's tough. So this isn't necessarily going to be an uplifting stream in that sense, because I want to talk about some of the psychological issues I'm having at this time. But essentially, I titled this stream this way because one of the things that has hit me a lot really recently is like body insecurity or this kind of thing. It's really weird. I remember when I felt this way for the first time when I just started losing weight in 2022, where I had this body insecurity. Oh yeah, I get that, Sadie. But I had this weird like feeling of body insecurity right in the beginning. It was like September of 2022. And I haven't really had it ever since. Most of the other time throughout my weight loss journey, I've been extremely miserable. I don't know how else to say it. Very difficult. It's been very arduous, been very ill, right? Had a lot of these different types of things. And lately it's been different. Like I feel similarly to where instead of like back then, it was like, oh my gosh, my body's changing. I'm nervous. What is that going to mean? What are people going to say? What's going to happen if I lose the weight? That's what I was thinking about in 2022. But today it's like, I've lost so much weight and not enough has changed. So it's like, I wanted more of a change. I wanted people to see me differently or to perceive me differently. So it's very weird to have a complete inversion of 2022. And it's just weird because I think astrologically right now, there's a lot of similar energy to 2022 because we have such a huge Pisces focus. I'm just going to let Bot know. I know Bot was caring about me going live, so I'm going to let Bot know I was live at least. But yeah, so I don't know. It's like the opposite though, right? So instead of like a fear of change, which right around that time I was going into this huge serotonin bullshit thing that I've been in like a long time, like since about December 2022, and it started to come down after December 2023, where I feel like it's gotten a little bit better. And so now it's like the exact opposite, where I'm like, I'm upset that things haven't changed. I want more of an impact. Why aren't people seeing me differently? Right. So very, very different. It's really, really weird to have a complete 180, um, because before it was like, I'm scared of things to change, and I'm like, "Why aren't they?" Essentially. And so I don't know, like, this is gonna sound so petty, but whatever. This is the kind of stuff that I'm going through, and I need to just, like, talk about it because I feel like at least I can get it out on here. I don't know if I'd post this on my main channel, but basically, like, as you guys know, I've had this crush on this guy forever, like an ASMR guy. It's my ASMR guy crush, where I'm in a delusional relationship or situationship in my mind. Like, and I understand that, and it's not real. And I know it isn't real, and it's fine. But there's still this cheesy part of me that was like, oh gosh, like, you know, maybe I could get in his league someday or something like that. Like, you have this feeling, or I did, especially as I'm losing weight. It's kind of feeling optimistic again, right? I was kind of getting to a better place physically, where it's like I'm back under 300. And I was feeling a little bit optimistic about, like, okay, I'm not the deaf as much. Like, I got asked out on a date for Valentine's Day. Yes, please, but I had all these different feelings where I was like, okay, like, I can get past this phase. And then it's just crazy because so my crush, he in the past 6 months, he lost like a ton of weight. And now his abs are starting to show. And so I just had this really, really weird, irrational feeling where I was just like, gosh, like, I was really feeling like I could get towards his league, and he's out of my league completely again. And it just really made me upset for some reason. And it's like, I haven't compared my body like this in a long time. Like, I don't know why, but I feel like I did in high school. And it might be because I'm at a similar weight to what I was in high school. But I'm very concerned with, like, social hierarchy and, like, stuff like this, which, I mean, to be fair, that was always me, like, my whole life, but I guess when I was, like, almost dying, it went away, or it just was something I never thought about anymore because it was like, nothing matters. The whole world is falling apart anyways, and why should I care, right? But that hierarchical thinking, it was so strong in 2020, in the beginning of the year. It was so strong in my mind. Where back then I was just like, I want to be better than these other people, and I need to prove these people wrong, and I need to do this and I need to do that. And I haven't felt that way in like 4 years. And all of a sudden it came back to me where I'm like, whoa, like, I'm thinking hierarchically again. I'm thinking, I don't like where my status is. I don't like my station. I don't like where I'm at all. And there's like a frustration with, I've lost so much weight, but I haven't lost enough. It isn't enough. And it's extremely frustrating for some reason. And it's like I'm doing the absolute best I can, and it's just not good enough. That's kind of how I feel. And I think it's more internal. Like, I'm not blaming anyone else. I really don't think it is anybody else's fault. Like, it could even be like something serotonin related, or something like maybe the serotonin thing, it's clearing up. And so I'm starting to feel these certain ways again. I was feeling sort of similar to this in 2022, where I was like really aggressive back then. I was extremely like, I want to do this. I want to do better on YouTube. I want to do this and that and the other. And I did. Like, I really started to do better on my channel. I started to do a lot in that year, and I feel like the same way. So I don't know if it's just like, I think in some ways you trade one set of problems for another. And instead of constantly thinking about, am I going to survive? Am I going to make it? Or I'm so sick, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I had multiple different phases. Like, there was a lot of time in 22 and 21 where it was like, I have to just weather through this hormonal storm there was a lot of times where I had to sit in it and let it pass. And then 2023, it was like, I have to fight it, which was very different. And that was a huge step forward in this battle, but it was very difficult. And then once I started fighting it, then really since last May, it's just been, I have to keep the momentum, have to keep up momentum, keep up momentum, keep up momentum. And through that time, I've had a lot of monotony. My life has become extremely boring. I'm pretty isolated, right? Like a lot of these things throughout the past year. And it's like, I am so sick of it now. I'm so tired of the way my life is. And I just don't, I think it is a sign of getting healthier. It's like I'm getting more of my ambition back, which is weird because it's like I'm not worried about it from a health perspective as much. So now I'm more upset about like my station in life, my position, my status, how people see me, which it's really not great at all. And I'm just very, very concerned with those things. And I feel jealous and bitter towards other people that have lost weight or that, are in a better station than me. It's really weird because I haven't felt this way in forever, like I said. And I've had a couple times where I felt jealous, like really, really jealous of somebody, not just body wise, but even like career wise and these types of things. And I haven't felt that way. So I think sometimes in this health journey, I think that I'm getting better or like, oh, my mental health is so much better now, or wow, I'm such an evolved person. But I think a lot of times it's not true. I think it was just that I was dying. And so it's like as I get better, a lot of these issues I had come back. And it's like, oh, okay. Because I feel the same way I did like in high school and I remember this. I mean, I think I don't know if I shared this on a video on my main channel, but I had this journal entry where I was like, I'm so desperate. I'm desperate for everything. I feel that way. I would consider it insatiable. So I probably will do a health update soon, but I really want to wait until I'm not super morbidly obese because I don't want to do too many health updates at once. I want to just kind of cover everything in one, and I'm really close. Hello, Bubble. Yes. Oh, thank you. Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, I think red and blue are political in every country, basically, almost every single one. Um, but I don't know, I am so dry over politics. It's kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, I'm just sick of my station in life. That's honestly how I feel. Which I know that's terrible and I should feel grateful and I should feel this and should feel that. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it is something about this size where I feel this way because I've felt this way a lot when I was at this similar weight. Like I felt this way in high school when I was at this similar weight. I felt this way in 2019 when I was at this similar weight. I felt this way in 2020. Like I had a weird journey where it was like, I was about 300 pounds in 2010 in the very beginning of the year. Um, I was about 300 pounds mid 2019, and then I gained weight again, and then I lost it again, and I was the same weight in early 2020. And then I eventually put all the weight back on again, which was horrifying, and it was really bad for my body. But it is something about this size that it affects me in a certain way where I think about things that way. And I don't know. It's a really difficult phase. Like, I don't think people really appreciate how difficult mid fat is. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bubble. Yeah, I do think I'm looking a little better. Like I'm not as unhealthy. I don't know how else to say that, but I think as we're getting towards spring, it's like I'm not as hypo. I'm just not, and it's starting to affect my skin. I'm starting to look a little better, even though I have like zero satisfaction or appreciation for literally anything, which is weird. I think I'm just depressed, honestly. I think I'm depressed. I think I've officially broken into hypodepression territory. So, which is great. Um, because it's like I've been feeling like kind of manic and then I feel really low. So I've been kind of going back and forth throughout each day. And I feel like the depression-y side is kind of taking over. And I'm getting less of the manic, more of the depression. So I'm like, great. And then I don't feel confident at all, which is horrifying. So yeah, I don't think people realize how difficult mid-fat is because it's like I literally had to just like my whole identity was gone after last year. Like I had to like everything about who I was built around my illness. And when the illness was going away, that had to break. And so then there was nothing left after. And so now I'm like, I feel like I'm in high school again. How disgusting is that? Who the fuck wants to feel like they're in high school when you're not? It's disgusting. So, yeah, I guess I'm having fat activist Alex 2.0, version number 2, which is I'm upset that a crush has abs now because I feel like he's so out of my league now. And before he was kind of chunk. So I felt like I was like getting there. It's just crazy. But I mean, I'm happy for him. I am. But I'm just like the deaf, you know. Very deafy. Even though I guess like Bubble said, maybe a little bit less deafy, but it's just like, oh, I don't know. It's like not deafy enough, I guess. But I don't think I can be satisfied, honestly. I really don't. I think it's because I'm kind of depressed. So it's like no matter what happens, I'm still going to be upset, if that makes any sense. So it's like I'm impossible to please, and I can tell. But yeah, that's such as life, right? Um, how are you guys doing? I'm having a hard time with this Pisces energy, as you can tell. It's killing me. I like the way my favorite astrologer talked about it. He said it is ancient emotions that are holding us back. I thought that was interesting because I do feel that way. I feel like a lot of the way I feel right now is ancient. It's like things that I felt a very long time ago or over the years, the panorama years, especially. And I don't know. It's like, how do you start the fire again? Like, how do you push past, or like, how do I initiate this stuff again? Right? Like, how do I start going out again or start doing things again? And it's like, I want to, but then I don't want to. It's like my brain is pulling me in two different directions all the time. It's like, I'm so lonely. I want to date, but then I don't want to date because I don't want to deal with somebody. It's like weird. So it's like a constant, and it's like that with everything. Like even with eating, there'll be times where I'm like, maybe I should eat a little bit more today. But then it's like other days I have, and it's like I feel exactly the same. And I'm not that hungry. So it's like there's no reason. But I did it because I wanted to feel better, or I wanted to feel a change, or I wanted to feel something, and I didn't. And it's like, it's the way my brain is right now. It's just not responding to stuff. It's very weird. I've been having a lot of shifts in my mood recently. I can't even blame walnuts. I haven't had any. Oh my God, that's so funny. All right, here. Hey, that's cool. You know. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I've knitted for a long time. I mean, not super long, but I started in 2020. And as I always say, it was the last piece of the puzzle for my BED because I had already dealt with all the emotional stuff. And so knitting was like that physical side or that tangible anxiety side of what I needed to stop completely. So I haven't since late 2020 in October. So I started knitting in October of 2020. That's the last time I binged. Isn't that crazy? But yeah. So yeah. So this is actually going to be a baby blanket. I don't know why I'm making it so huge, but I think I just got the number of stitches wrong. And it's kind of like one of those things where you started it and it's like, I might as well just keep going, but then it's really drastically huge. And so I'm like, oh, this is going to take me forever. So that's kind of what happened. It's supposed to be a baby blanket. My cousin's having a baby. And this is literally going to be like a toddler blanket or a child blanket. Like this is huge. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'll try to show it when I'm done with the row, but I don't know. Yeah, it will be big and cozy. I think her baby will be able to use it for a long time. It's definitely not going to be a newborn blanket. Could even probably be used for the crib or whatever. So, but yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I don't know. I just think insecurity is so disgusting. And I feel like it's really unattractive, but it's like I literally can't help it. Because it's like I watched the videos I made for my main channel and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know about the way I'm talking in this. Or I don't know about this. It's just, oh gosh, I don't know. So I don't know if it's just really horrible, like self-awareness that is really, scarring with every little thing I do. But I'm able to like push past it or to not like care. But it's just really weird and like high schoolish. It's horrible. And then I just think, gosh, like no wonder I could barely do anything in high school. It's probably some hormonal bullshit because I don't know. This is just weird. It's just so awkward. I don't know. So yeah. I think in a lot of ways, not like always, like obviously from the health perspective, losing weight is incredibly rewarding. But from like every other perspective, losing weight is like very thankless from a huge size. It's extremely thankless. So I'm like, oh gosh, this is fugified. And then I think about like being small fat, which my best friend, he's going on dates and, or he's trying to date. And one of the guys that he's going on a date with is like small fat. So he's probably like, I don't know, let's say he's 6'1", he weighs like 260 or 250 at like he's like around there, if you can picture that. And I just think like, oh gosh, like that's my future. And I'm just like, that is horrible. I don't want to look like that. It's just like so, oh gosh, like I don't know. I just am so weird right now. Cause I'm just like, I don't know. It's so bizarre to have the completely opposite feeling that I did 2 years ago. Where 2 years ago, I'm like, "Oh, I'm so scared. Oh my gosh, I'm terrified of changing. Oh no, who will I be? Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm gonna do," right? Like, that's how I was feeling, and then now I'm just like, "I just wanna be done. I wanna skip the rest of it, just go to the end, just not be fat anymore. Like, I'm over it, sick of this, done." And I think it's because like I've been in this mid-fat duff phase for almost a year. And it's like, it's been a long fucking year. It's awful on from a social perspective. Like it's awful. I don't know how to describe it. But I'm gonna do a video on the mid-fat experience. But I feel like I should thank you, Sadie. I feel like I should actually like I want to kind of wait till I'm getting out of it, but maybe I should write notes or something, journal about it, something while I'm really in the thick of it because it sucks. It really fucking sucks from a social perspective. It is just horrible. And then it's not just how other people treat you, it's how you feel. So it's like where your hormones are in your brain in a mid fat zone, and then how people also see you. So it's like it's a feedback loop. So people see you in a weird way, you feel weird, and then you, because you feel weird, you act weird, and then they see you even weirder, and it just is like this weird loop. Nice Sadie. So yeah, it's just a very strange loop where it's like it feeds itself and it creates this really disgusting thing from a social perspective. It's extremely difficult socially to be mid-fat. It just is, both externally and internally. And I think a lot of times these super fat activists that are like hugely fat, no, definitely not VL. These super fat activists, they spent a lot of years in this mid-fat zone where it's like you don't have confidence, you feel weird, you're comparing yourself to other people's bodies, you're comparing your body to other people, you're feeling all these weird social things. And eventually they gain weight and they get out of that. And then your hormones change and you start to feel no shame. And then you feel incredibly confident. Like you do not care. So if you think of like Samira, she's like very, very big now. And she probably went through that mid-fat phase when she was younger. And you think of it as a, oh, I'm getting older, I'm more confident now. But it's actually you're more sick. And now I believe your serotonin response is completely fried. So you have zero shame. So you act crazy and you do crazy things and you act extremely unhinged because, in my opinion, this is my belief, your serotonin receptors are fried. They're oversaturated or they can't process serotonin anymore. Or you have serotonin resistance. So it's like you don't have any appetite control. You don't have any behavior control and you don't have any shame, but you consider that confidence because you just got out of the mid-fat phase where your serotonin's really high and you feel it very strongly. That's where I'm at now. So I have a lot of shame. I don't have as much shame as I did in this last summer. It was awful. I wouldn't even be live streaming right now if it was that bad. Because I literally almost deleted this personal channel during that time because I was so ashamed of everything about myself because the serotonin was so high and like the response was healing. So I think, yeah, as you lose the weight, you go through that same unconfidence and you have to get past it, go out of obesity, and then you're fine. Then you get your confidence back and you're actually healthy because what they don't understand is the mid-fat phase, it's social issues. But when you get into super fat, then it becomes health issues, which health issues are a lot more serious and they're a lot scarier. I'm not going to die like this, right? I'm just going to feel awkward. I'm going to have a hard time dating, like these kinds of issues. I'll have a hard time with YouTube. Like this type of stuff is difficult when you're at this mid-fat range, which is why you don't see a lot of people become famous or become successful at a mid-fat size. They're usually either a small fat or they're hugely fat. It's typically that zone because mid-fat, it's like you can't relate to people, they can't relate to you. So it's just fugly. And, you know, here I go on my weight loss channel thinking it's going to help me to lose weight, and it actually harmed me as far as YouTube is concerned, which I don't think that a lot of people that are really big, that are famous from being really big, they're never going to get past this. That's why they're going to stay fat forever. They're going to die that way. That's my opinion, because you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot of that social stuff, because once that shame comes back, it roars back and you feel extremely shameful about everything. And you start thinking about the past and all the crazy shit you've done. You start thinking about all the time you wasted. You have a lot of regret. It's kind of like becoming sober. I don't know how to describe it. It's so weird. Um, Maybe you could film some about how you're currently feeling and then put together an edited video with those clips. That way you can comment on your perspective once past it. That's a good idea, actually. I should do that. That's a really good idea. I might even use this live stream. That might be good. I was thinking that may be why people seem like they're acting more crazy than ever is because of their diet. I think so. I think that that's possible. I think it's also the panorama response. I think it was incredibly traumatic for a lot of people. And so I think a lot of people are a lot more hypo now than they were before the panorama, both through diet, lack of exercise, and collective trauma. I think all three of those things, it's moved the world to be much more hypo than it was before. And I think there are a lot of people that are going back or getting out of it now. So it's this weird phase where a lot of people are like coming off of stuff, and then a lot of people are getting worse than ever, right? So it's a strange place to be in society right now. It's just very strange. And I do think a lot of it is hormonal because of what we went through. So it's a trip. I think it's highly related. So I think because a lot of people are coming out of this time, that's why there's probably going to be political shifts that occur that will shock a lot of people this year, because I think a lot of people's minds are changing, or people are waking up or feeling more normal post panorama. So I think a lot of trends might go back or like shift back a bit to how they were, because we're kind of out of that super panorama response. I'm going to do cupping, which I know Bot loves my cupping, but I think that that could be part of what's going on for sure. This year, it was kind of starting last year, but yeah, so I think like socially, which is good. I think socially people will like start talking again, right? There's a lot of signs astrologically that this is a more like a year where people become more extroverted or more social, or they start talking more, because we've been in this panorama time and there's been a lot of isolation. So I think a lot of people are going to start going out more, going back to the office, right? Having to be around people. So there's more of a sociability factor. Astrologically, there's a lot of air in this year. Not right now, but May and beyond, there's tons of air. And so I think a lot of the air, it brings more communication, extroversion, these types of things. I think we're a little too introverted as a society right now. And I feel it myself, I do. But I am really introverted anyways, but it's too much right now. Honestly, it's like, ugh. It's just painful. It's like painfully self-aware, or painfully, I don't know, it just ain't it. I don't like it. I know this is weird, but I don't care. I'm weird. I need to do this for my work, because I have to walk all the time. So it helps keep my knees from hurting. But anyways, so that's what I think will happen. That's kind of what I see happening. So it's also the year of the dragon, which there's usually a lot of political change that occurs in a year of a dragon. Previous years of the dragon are 2000, 2012. Those were both like major elections for the culture, where things changed a lot after those elections. So I think this year is another one of those type of situations. So it should be interesting. But regardless, I feel like an awkward high schooler again. I feel disgusting, and I feel like just not confident at all, which is really weird. So I remember like when this happened last year. Oh yeah, no problem, VL. Yes, I will leave it up. I will. I've left most of them up. I used to take them down a lot, but I understand the concern since I'm telling you, I'm so unconfident. I feel disgusting. I feel horrible. It's like I do, but I feel okay enough to still live stream, to still function, to still do this stuff. You know what I mean? So it should be fine. So it's like I think to you guys, I still look better. No problem, VL. I think to you guys, I still look better than I did like last year. Or it's like a better situation. But to me, I just subjectively feel like it's not better or like it's just fugly, which is a super feeling and not like reality at all. So I'm kind of aware of that. If that makes any sense. Oh yeah. Hello, Doris. Oh my gosh. I've seen you around. I don't know. Have you been in a stream before, Doris? Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on with astrology, it's always the interpretation, right? So if it works or not, or if it's good or not, it depends on who's reading it, which I think I am good, but a lot of people aren't. And I've seen it. I've seen some people, they're like horrible. Like they'll say horrible things. You have to be like not biased, which is really difficult because that's kind of like how a lot of astrologers they predicted that Hillary was going to win in 2016. It's because they were all liberals, so they wanted her to win, but it wasn't necessarily the case. Like I had just started astrology in 2016 and I knew from the transits that it was very up in the air and that it was going to be close or kind of close or that we weren't going to know until it happened. So I didn't make any predictions with that election. With 2020, I knew that it was more so in Biden's favor. I didn't want to say that at the time, but I did know it at the time. I knew. I could tell. Oh, no problem, Sadie. Thank you. But yeah, I could tell in 2020, I was like, ugh, this doesn't look good because 2020, there was like 5 billion planets in Capricorn, which Capricorn has to do with like the established way or doing things the old way, right? Which to me, Biden is like the ultimate old, old way politician. So it was definitely more so in his favor. Yeah. This year, all I can tell you for certain is that I really, really, really do not think Biden is going to win. So it would have to be they take him out of the race or something, or it would have to be, or it's going to be whoever's running against him. That's my opinion. Because this is all about like a new wave and doing things differently. So I can't say for certain that Trump will win or this or that. I think he could. I just know Biden will lose. Does that make sense? That's all I can tell you. It will not be Biden. What is replay? Oh yeah, the streams, yeah. So that I can say as far as the astrology is it will not be Biden. I don't think even if he ends up passing away, there's going to be something that happens where I don't think it will pass. It will go past this year. I just don't. I know that that's really scarring to say, but I don't want anything bad to happen to Biden. It's not about that, but it's just when you see how things are astrologically, you can tell there's like a massive political shift that occurs this year. So it will not be status quo because Pluto is changing signs and it's just a huge new era that is beginning. So regardless of what happens, whether or not it is Trump, it will probably, I would say 80% chance it will be someone else at least. It will not be Joe. Because that would be a status quo type of thing, which is very Capricorn. And we're not in that anymore. What do you mean, what about now? I need to know your question more so, Doris. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of political shifts happening this year. Oh yeah, that's interesting, Doris. Yeah, I mean, I just think my prediction of the election, if I were to tell you right now, I think the House is really 50-50. I think Republicans will probably win the Senate because they have a favorable Senate map and they're also changing their leadership, so it won't be as self-sabotagey. And I'm pretty sure the Democrats are gonna lose the presidency. I think people will punish them for the executive position because it has been such a disaster pretty much the entire time. He might not, but even so, it still damages the party, in my opinion. And I know that they try to act like, well, Trump is just as bad, and Trump is this, and Trump is that. But in the eyes of independents, that's not true. And that's what matters, right? If you're a partisan person, you're going to vote for who you're going to vote for. And independents are breaking for Trump. So it could change. We have eclipses coming. Things can always change. I don't think Democrats are going to just lie down and let it happen. I think that they're going to try their best to think of something. And the eclipses are coming, which we do need to talk about those too. Gosh, I guess it's good that I'm doing this stream. So I've been doing my research on the eclipses this year. The big one is on April 8th. That's the biggest one of the entire year. And it's a solar eclipse, which solar eclipses, they are something tangible that happens in the world. So it has to do with a tangible shift. Now, for some reason, the eclipse in April of last year, I couldn't tell what the tangible effect was. I never was able to see. All I knew was it affected my personal life drastically. So I wonder if the eclipse on April 19th, I believe it was last year, I wonder if that eclipse was a more personal eclipse. And it still is in Aries, which is a very personal sign. So it might not be as macrocosmic as a lot of us are thinking, because the last one wasn't at all. It was very like personal. Oh, I answered what? Oh. um, so I do wonder, we have a few really big shifts occurring soon with the eclipse in April. That's a very big shift. Then we have Jupiter changing sign in May. And we have Jupiter Uranus conjunction in April, which I think that will cause economic shifts. I am going to tell you now, I am definitely predicting a recession this year. I think it will hit in the summer if it doesn't hit earlier, but it will probably be late spring that it's a recession where they have to say it is because it will be too big of one. So, and I think it will last about a year. So people, hopefully will be okay. But I don't know if it'll be like the worst depression or not depression. I don't think it'll be the worst recession ever. I just think it will be an actual recession, like full blown, we're in a recession type of energy. A lot of people, they worry about if it's going to be 2008. I don't know if it's going to be 2008. It could be, but it might not be, right? I think it'll be what it is, if that makes any sense. I know that's kind of a lame thing to say, but I see I do think the recession will hit in the summer, which is terrible electorally as well. But it's just Jupiter is going to be in Gemini, which, very interesting, Doris. I think you might be a little behind, Doris. That's okay. Jupiter in May is going to shift into Gemini in May, which that's going to be like a huge deflationary thing because Jupiter is debilitated in Gemini. So it will make a lot of things not grow as much. And it will be kind of like I said, the deflationary, which deflationary things are like a recession or like weight loss. So like if you're trying to lose weight, I think it'll be easier to lose weight when Jupiter is in Gemini. It's going to be bubble bursting, right? People don't listen to what you say. They're questioning. People don't just trust people. It's like there won't be, well, the news said this, so I believe it. That's not going to happen with Jupiter and Gemini. Everybody will be questioning everything. They're going to be like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. And it'll be hard to like wrangle people together. You know, we've had a lot of this like, you're on my team, I'm on your team, you're on the other side, I hate you. That doesn't work as well with Jupiter and Gemini because it makes people think for themselves more. We also have Pluto in Aquarius, which is more thinking for yourself. And we have the South Node in Libra, which is all about being balanced, especially intellectually. So we have a lot of like depolarization in 2024, a lot of forces for thinking for yourself, less group orientation, and a really confusing, especially within the year of the dragon, where there's a lot of ideological shifts in the year of the dragon. It's a very confusing time where it's like you don't know who's on your team and who's not on your team. You don't know who's on your side or who isn't. Everything's blended and mixed together. So you can't tell because a lot of things have changed, especially since the eclipse in Libra, which was really the Palestine-Israel conflict back in October. That really changed the political groups and things shifted drastically after that, where especially by now, and especially going into summer, going into the likely recession, there will be a massive mind-opening experience and thinking for yourself vibe, which will be very interesting. What I've recently heard is that government is trying to reduce part-time contractor positions and make them into employees, so the gig economy industries may suddenly be salary burdened. That's weird. Oh my God. These are fine. It doesn't even bruise that much. That is really interesting, Bubblelandia. I think too, there's going to be a lot of like the housing prices. I think the housing market is going to start to fall because they can't get sales. They're struggling. There's a lot of states where the prices are coming down. There's a lot of states where, you know, housing insurance is way too high. People can't afford to buy the houses at the levels that they're selling them. So the prices are going to have to come down at some point. And then same with like electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, there's massive, massive deflationary pressures. Yes, Florida. Exactly, Doris. Totally Florida. Florida's a great example. They're kind of ahead of the curve, but I think that will hit other places too. I think some places like California are really delusional and they're going to have to bring down their prices. And Californians, they tend to hold their prices really high for a really, really long time. But then they usually have a huge crash, which that happened in 2008. So I think there are going to be, yeah, those are all different sizes. Yes, but what I've seen is that there will be way too many multifamily buildings with empty apartments, which will bring rent down, and that will impact the residential single-family home prices. Yes, I think there's also the insurance costs, home association costs, property taxes. Everything is skyrocketed in price, so people are going to be either forced to sell, which banks are starting to foreclose now. It's been an uptick. So, I mean, the housing market is so incredibly shaky. I literally have a friend and I told her, do not buy a house. I literally said, just wait. Just give us some time because I can see even astrologically. And again, you don't need to just look at the astrology. Like you can look at the evidence of what's occurring within the market. There's so many stocks that are blatantly overvalued. You have companies that are losing revenue and their stocks go up. You have companies that are laying people off and their stock goes up. If you're laying people off, it's because you're struggling. So that means that those stocks are overvalued. So the stock market is hugely overvalued. And, you know, you can factor in the inflation, but other than that, it's going to come down. This is all bubble, which astrologically, the bubbles were created in 2022 because Jupiter was in Pisces near Neptune. And so, okay, then I'm taking my time bond. I'm in Florida. Prices are dropping. Congress is selling stock like crazy. Yes, it is about to burst. I agree. And I would say it could even burst in April. But between April and May and April and June, there's no way. Something's going to go down. That I can say because astrologically there's a lot of signs. But basically, what created the financial bubble and a lot of different bubbles, even ideological bubbles, was 2022 because of Jupiter in Pisces. It conjuncted Neptune and it made this huge bubble. And that's why we had massive inflation. It's a super, super inflationary transit when Jupiter is conjunct Neptune. It causes a lot of inflation. And because it was in Pisces, it was very strong because Jupiter is strong in Pisces and Neptune rules Pisces. So it's extremely strong. So it was massive inflation in 2022. But Jupiter has left, which Jupiter is expansive, and Saturn has entered the chat. Saturn is in Pisces, which Saturn is contractionary, and it condenses and boils things down. So it's the exact opposite. So it definitely does denote a bubble burst, especially when Jupiter is weakened. So that growing force is debilitated in Gemini. There's no way. And Jupiter is going to square Saturn. We're going to have some massive economic bubble bursts this year, but they're also ideological, right? So in astrology, it's never just one thing. It's all of it together. I remember pointing out inflation was coming in 2020 and people said I was a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. It's basic economics. Yes, I remember people saying that too. And I was worried about it because primarily I think it was because of the unemployment benefits. I think that was the most inflationary thing where they were giving people like $300 a week or something like that. I was like, that is going to cause massive inflation. And then, of course, this administration has continued to spend like we're still in a pandemic response, even after years after it's over. So that continues inflation while the Fed is working to bring it down. It's crazy. So all this financial stuff has been absolutely insane. Yeah. Yep. I agree. And the unemployment thing too. That was crazy. But yeah, basically it's, they're basically, the Fed has been doing quantitative tightening since mid 2022. And they're continuing to do it. And they have to continue to do it because the Biden administration is working against the Fed, which has never happened. We've never had an administration be on a separate page than the Federal Reserve since the Federal Reserve has existed. So basically what happens is because Biden keeps spending so much in all this stuff, it continues. Then the Fed has to continue contractionary policy longer. And the longer it goes, the more likely a recession hits. And I think we're basically there. So between interest rates and quantitative tightening, it can cause a recession. And that's basically what's happening, which Biden will blame the Fed. So he's already ready to. But it has a lot to do with him because the policies are inflationary. So anyways, gosh, we got really deep here. But yeah, point is the bubble's going to pop. It's about to burst. Billionaires are selling their stocks. You said Congress is selling their stocks. They know it's coming. So that's kind of where I'm just like, I hope it doesn't affect me that much. I mean, who knows? It probably will. I mean, I don't even know. I just am trying to like, the only prediction I will say where I think it's different than 2008 is that it's not equally happening everywhere. I think it's going to be the result of the panorama response. And I think places who stayed closed longer will likely have a worse result. And I think that that could be the biggest determination because what our country went through was so different. And so it is very weird. Oh, very interesting, Doris. Yeah, so I don't think the recession will hit everybody equally. I think people have been financially responsible or people who are good workers, they probably are less likely to get fired. I just think that it's really different than 2008 because back in 2008, there was a more united front and people were mostly the same and they had mostly the same lives. Whereas today, it's so polarized and so crazy that people are living completely different lifestyles with a lot of people living purely on credit cards, for example. I think that's going to be a disastrous thing within this recession. It's also another reason why a recession is coming because they're starting to not let people borrow anymore on credit cards. So there's just so many factors happening at the same time that are going to be causing a recession. Yeah, so what they do is I think they don't allow you to borrow anymore. They just cut you off. That's already been happening. So it's gonna get pretty crazy. No, you can't, but that's not possible. But yeah, anyways, it's just crazy. You cannot like I think a lot of Gen Z and millennials, they think they can just use credit forever and it will never stop. But that's not true. Like eventually you won't be able to borrow anymore and eventually your cards will get cut off and eventually you won't be able to get another card. And I think that's going to start happening, especially with Jupiter in Gemini. Yeah, it is. Well, especially now, it's so incredibly high. But I know a lot of people that are living in debt spending and living on credit cards. I've seen a lot of people do that during this time because they didn't want to take the L. I took the L. I took the Biden L. I lowered my expenses and I had no life. So I just dealt with it. But a lot of people didn't want their lifestyle to change. So they just took out a credit card and started living off of that. They're using that for their groceries, which is terrible. It's a terrible idea. So I think if you did stuff like that, it's going to be really rough for you this coming year. I didn't do that. So hopefully it's okay. I tried to be responsible. I really tried. But yeah, it's going to be a little crazy. So I think things will change a lot this year. And it will cause a lot of ideological shifts. And that's why it's going to be really different to have all these different experiences, have all this different change. And yeah, that's what I think will happen. So it's going to be crazy. But I don't know. I don't really know what to do about it just because it's so weird. And I don't think it's going to affect every state equally, every country, or, every county equally, every person equally. I think it really depends. It's incredibly karmic. It has a lot to do with karma. So it's like if you did certain things, especially from 2019 until 2023, those years, you kind of get the result of it. So if you've made really terrible decisions during that time, this is the time when you have to face the consequences. If you made good decisions, this is the time where you have the breakthrough, is in 2024. So the best example I have is like my weight loss, right? So in 2019, I was working incredibly hard to lose weight. In 2020, I had a horrific experience, as you guys know, where I was dying of hypothyroidism, as having extremely horrible effects. But in 2021, 2, and 3, I did the thyroid protocol. I started losing weight, right? I started doing these things. So it's likely in this year, in 2024, where I'll really shift weight wise and get that result after those years of effort. So you can think back in your life, what are things that I've been working on since 2019? What have I been wanting to take off? This is the year where it will take off. But by the same token, if you've been doing a bunch of fuck shit since 2019, if you've been doing nothing since 2019, if you've been lying, cheating, stealing since 2019, this is the year where you get your comeuppance, is in 2024. If you've been credit spending since 2019, debt spending, right? This is when you kind of have to deal with that consequence. So it's tricky. But this year is about a lot of long-standing momentum. So it has to do with things that have been in motion for many, many years. So it's kind of like, in some ways, it's a little too late to change things. But you can change things when Jupiter's in Gemini. That's when you can start to change things again. But it's still going to be hard until 2026. So that's a long time. So we're in this overall time period of long-term momentum. So things that have been happening since 2019. So we have less of a ability to make huge pivots because of Saturn and Pisces. It really has a lot to do with endings and long-term momentum and things that have been going on for a long time, even as long as 30 years, right? So we just have to deal. But yeah, this year especially is very karmic, 2024. This is the most karmic year. We have ultimate karma in January of 2025 as the South Node leaves Libra and goes into Virgo. And then it will be a little bit less karmic in the rest of 2025. But this year is incredibly karmic, especially around the eclipse time, which is around October and April. So you get a lot of karma with these Libra eclipses. There's a lot that comes in. So we're going into another phase. So yeah, super interesting. These eclipses are crazy, but we had our first dose of karma with the eclipses in October. So it's like you get your next wave. And then you have another one in 2024 October. Yes, but yeah, so the eclipse has to do with both the sun and the moon. So they go together. But yeah, anyways, it's super interesting, I think. But I think for me, what I expect for myself, Saturn's going into my 5th house, which is like romance, love, creative projects, like YouTube is very 5th house. So I think with Saturn in the 5th, what I expect to occur throughout the entire transit, which is 2.5 years, right? I think throughout that 2.5 year period, I think 2 major things that will probably happen to me is I'll probably get married throughout that time, and I'll probably make YouTube my job throughout that time. So those 2 things are really exciting. But I think that those are 2 things that will occur. But again, that's 2.5 years from like now. So it's like 2026. It's a minute. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. But what I expect this year is this is probably going to be my most major weight loss. Oh my God, Bot can feel it. I'm just kidding. I probably will go somewhat soon, but I don't need to go yet. But do you guys have any questions about what I've talked about? I'm curious if you have any questions. If you don't, that's fine. Because I know it's a lot to process anyways. But yeah, I think 2024 for me is going to be, it could be a year where I go through multiple categories. So I could go from super morbid obese to morbidly obese to not obese. I could like zoom through them. That's something that could potentially happen this year for me. That's something I think is almost even likely to happen, which is crazy. So that's really all I see for a fact. There is a lot of like romantic stuff too, which is weird. And a lot of YouTube related things too, which is weird. So I think those two things will be pretty big this year, or like those, I think all three of those areas, which makes sense with my Saturn in the 5th transit kicking off. Yeah, I agree, Doris. But yeah, so I think it's a lot of romantic relationship stuff, even some financial stuff, but there's a lot of weird focus for me on dating, romance, sex, like a lot of stuff like that for me this year and going into next year. So I'm like, that's interesting. So I would assume that a lot of weight loss is coming because that would make more sense. Oh my God, Sam. What's a trap is these shorts. They're going up way too high, but we have to ignore that that's a thing. So yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing for myself. It's just hard to interpret it. It's like, is it someone from the past? Is it a new person? Is it, somebody else? Like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. You can interpret it in different ways. Is it not about dating at all? And is it purely about YouTube? It could be, right? So that could be a thing too. So it's hard to tell what it all means, but that's where I don't know, like, or where it's hard to you can't always just interpret astrology that well because there are multiple meanings within something like that. So yeah, I would just say, regardless of what it is, I think this year is majorly, for me, it will be defined by my weight loss. That's my opinion. I think this is the year that I will lose the most weight in my life. So, and that will be very interesting because I'm sure that will have a huge impact. So yeah, that's my expectation. I have absolutely hated this 2023 cycle. It has been horrible. Which each astrological cycle starts around March 20th. So if you think about March 20th, 2023 till now, it has been horrible for me. This has been the most arduous, horrible, difficult, boring, like just very hard working time for me with little benefit. And it's really fugly. But I think I have a really firm foundation. And I think the 2024 cycle I could use it as a springboard for that one. So I might make a lot of progress in this year. And I think a lot of people can because it's the year of the dragon. So yeah, I would just be on your A game. And if you can, try to invest when the stocks are low. Because I don't care what they say when they're like, the economy's booming, it's doing amazing. It is not booming, you guys. Don't tell me you believe that. Please tell me you don't believe that. Jeez. Gosh, there was this one article that was like, we need to just get used to really high housing prices. They're never going to come down. And I was like, this type of journalism should be illegal. I'm like, who are you lying to and why? Right. It's like, why are you lying so hard? Who are you working for? You know? It's disgusting. It's like you can see all the freaking signs of the housing market. And usually, I think what will probably happen is the housing market will start to crash, and then people will freak and they'll start selling their stocks, and then the stock market crashes. That's what I think will happen. It's happened before many times, you know? But why do you say that, But I think we've been in this really weird, like hellish alien world since 2020. And I think this is the year that we get out of it. Does that make sense? Like, I think astrologically, the years 2019 till 2024, like that 5 year period, is like a weird hellscape of death that we've just lived in for a lot of years. And I think that it's, especially 2024 till now, I think it's been so awful during that time. Um, just horrible. So I guess 2019 was like a transitionary year into this hellish time. And 2024 is the back end. So it's like the reverse 2019. It's the year where we get out of it and we transition out. So it was really, especially 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Horrible death, disgusting years of terror and like nightmare, weird world, bubble world that isn't real. And I think this is the year where all that bubble pops and we go back to reality. And it's like, whoa, what the fuck? And I think all of us who have kept our head on straight and have actually stayed in reality, we're going to be fine. But a lot of people dove in. Yes, it does, John. Which I said that earlier in the stream because there's so much Pisces right now. It does bring back a 2022 feeling. But that will pass. It will pass probably by like May or April even. So it's not going to last, but it is a callback era. It's a callback time. But yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts. I think if you kept your head on straight, then when reality just goes back to normal, you're going to be like, okay, that was fine. And I think the rest of people are going to be like people who didn't have their head on straight, people who were living in Delulu world. They're going to be like, whoa, what the fuck? And that's what's going to happen. I think it'll hit you like a train. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Yeah, I would think all those years were horrible. If you think those years were good, John, this might be one of the worst years you'll ever have because I don't know if you've been totally in reality because it's been very rough during these years. So maybe the reality will come crashing down because that's what's going to happen to a lot of people this year too. So if you've been in like dream world and, oh, I don't have any problems and whatever, this is when it's like, bam, holy shit. But for those of us who have been working our asses off, who have worked hard, who have done a lot of stuff, who have fought, who have done things, this is the year where you start to break through. That's why I call 2024 the year of breakdowns and breakthroughs, because people will have an absolute shit show this year regardless. So for some people. But yeah. I don't know, Sam. I know these have been the best years of Sam's life, so yeah. I think if you worked really hard during these years, that's like a good sign. If you were really lazy, then that's a bad sign. So I'd be like, oh, you're probably gonna have a really hard time. But that is like a way to tell if it's gonna be okay, if that makes any sense. That's like one way we can tell if you've just still been working and doing a lot and working really hard throughout these years, you're probably going to be, you probably stayed in reality. But I think there's a lot of people that didn't, if that makes any sense. Or like I said, they lived on credit card debt, or they lived on um like my cousin, one of my cousins, she has tons and tons and tons of student loan debt now because she was kind of in that dream world of college. So I think it's that kind of thing where it really depends. Like, did you work hard during these years? Did you accomplish something? If you didn't, then you're going to take a huge L this year. If you worked really hard, then you're going to take a huge W. So for me, the only thing that I know of that I consistently worked extremely hard upon was weight loss. And that's why I can say with fair amount of confidence, I will probably lose a lot of weight this year, and it will probably be mostly done by the end of the year because of all the steps I took in the previous years. So it's really that kind of thing. So if you worked consistently hard, then you'll probably get a benefit, Doris, if that makes sense. And there have been some karmic breakthroughs for people. Like I know for me, I got out of severe hypo and I got into just like more moderate, even in October. So that was like a karmic thing where like something I had worked really hard towards started to get better. And then I had more of like this really, the identity crisis aspect and that kind of stuff. And so, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was especially arduous because these are my Saturn return years, right? So it was very, very difficult. And it was a very difficult time in the world because of COVID, especially. But yeah, I felt them extremely hard because it was my Saturn return. And 2022 was actually the year of my Saturn return. So it was very difficult. But I think it was so difficult because I just had to work so hard. And I did work very hard that year. Um, but yeah. Yeah. So that's how I would describe it. We've been in this weird alternate universe for like 4 years, and it's going to come to an end. So for some people, maybe it was a dream. For some people, it was a nightmare. Maybe for some, it was in between or it was neutral. But regardless, it's coming to a close. This year, it will pass. So we kind of go back to normal life or reality or these kinds of things. Because I do think there are a lot of people that are like, oh, yeah, like I was able to, there's a lot of people who have made a lot of money during this time. And those ways of making money might not exist anymore, for example. It's that kind of thing. So it's like, if you've soared during this time, you'll probably stop. If you've suffered, you'll probably stop. It's really that kind of thing. And things just kind of go back to reality. So like some of these delusional housing prices, for example, it has to go back to reality. Some of these like, oh, I can just live off of debt and loans and credit cards. That's not a thing anymore, right? So it's that kind of stuff. So we'll see. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good for me because it's been awful. But again, I do think my experience was especially bad because it was my Saturn return, which makes sense because that is like a very difficult period of time for somebody in their life. And it was very difficult for me. I think too, because I had Saturn in the fourth, which it's tough. It's a very tough transit. It's very dark. And you oftentimes have to think about survival. It's like a very survivalistic Saturn transit, which it was my Saturn return and it was in that. So I was like really struggling to survive most of these years, be from physical health issues or financial issues. It was so difficult. And oftentimes both issues at the same time. So, but I didn't live on credit cards. I didn't live on debt, right? I didn't do that. So I just worked through it and yeah. That's life. So I would be worried if these were like golden years. I'd be a little worried. I'd be like I'd be a little worried for John because I'm like, okay, well, that's probably going to come to a close because it's not going to be like that anymore. Because things are going to change drastically. So it's time to go back to reality. And I think that's essentially what will happen by the end of this year and going into next year is we'll be in reality again. And we won't be in this weird, like I said, a very dark, strange period of time where things were just incredibly unfair. I don't know how else to put it. But yeah, just massive injustice pretty much across the board. So that's my prediction. But it's fine. I mean, it's karmic. So it's like, it is what it is. It is what you put into it. You get what I'm saying? So like if you worked hard, then you're going to be fine. If you were responsible, if you did what was expected, or if you did what you needed to do, you'll be rewarded. If you didn't, then you won't. Then you'll face a consequence. So it's really that kind of thing. But that's what karma is. Like, karma is not good or bad. Karma is not like, it's not a reward or a punishment. It's a result of your actions, right? That's what karma is. So it is just what you have put your work into over the past few years. They can determine a long period of your life, like 20 years. So if you were super lazy, you could have fucked yourself up for a long time, which a lot of people are because they debt spend it like crazy. That's the kind of thing that can ruin your life for 20 years. So it's like, it was a difficult time, and it was like a time of testing, if that makes any sense. But it is coming to a close. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this year. Major turning point. But yeah. I guess that's the end of my dissertation. I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm just going to finish this row. But thank you guys so much for listening. And I hope that this year works out for you. Either way, we're going to be okay. Like, even if you have a bad time, you just got to take an L. And yeah, you just deal with it. You know, it's just the way that life is. But I hope that you guys have a good result. I hope that things are okay. Like I said, I don't know if this was like the best time of your life. I'm like, oh, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a good omen because it really wasn't a good time. But, you know, to each their own, right? People have different experiences. And I think that time will tell, you know. I'm almost done. I didn't scoot, but why do I have to scoot? Is that a rule? Oh my God. Scoot. Is that the scoot? Anyways, you guys have a good one. I'll talk to you later. Bye.